everyone. Thank you so much for being here. So, like he just mentioned, I'm sorry I didn't get your name, but we're going to be covering a variety of topics. Essentially, us being women in product and mainly kind of talking about what's really happening in the job market. It's it's on fire right now. So we're really going to be talking about a bunch of things. I am Naimisha, Senior PM at Huge, and I'm also the founder of Products by Women, which is a community I've scaled to over 20,000 women in the last 2.5 years. So with that, I'd like to pass it on to Srinidhi.
Hello everyone, I'm Srinidhi Rajan. I'm currently with the product team of Amazon Music, and I'm a software engineer turned product manager. So if you have any questions along those lines, I would be happy to take them. And it's because of Naimisha's Products by Women community I met both of these panelists as well. So I'll pass it on to you, Soumya.
Yep, thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Soumya. I'm a senior product manager at MailChimp, Intuit now. I live in the city and I'm super excited to be here. As Srinidhi mentioned, we're all part of that Products by Women community, but also have been working in product in different roles and are kind of in different points in our career. So in terms of what we wanted to cover today, we wanted to keep it very organic. We've had a lot of informational and workshop kind of sessions, but this is more like a peer conversation. You can call it a vent session or whatever, ask questions and just kind of talk heart to heart. As Sri mentioned, there have been so many transitional things that are happening. People are changing careers, people are changing cities, people are changing roles within the organization. So we just kind of wanted to address some of those questions and see how everybody is handling these transitions and what it means for us to be agile. I had to throw in that word there because we're all product people and we love that buzzword. But really, how are we handling that? So tackle any questions there. And we have some questions that we will address right away, but happy to take any that come up on Slido. And the second thing, clearly there are 3 brown women sitting here, and it would be a disservice to the community if we didn't talk about diversity and inclusion and not just women, any sort of, different perspective that we can bring to innovation and product building and how that can benefit us all and how some of you can be allies and how some of you can find your voice if you fit that minority group, right? So we're going to talk about a lot of that. And if you see me looking at my phone, it's because I haven't memorized questions. We're not in school. I'm going to try and pick up some of these questions from here. But I think the first one, Naimisha, you were going to talk about the job market.
First of all, I want to really call out that I love that there's so much representation in the room amongst women in product here. So a big hand for that. The first question is really you both have really just transitioned at MailChimp and Amazon. What is the market like for women in product, and what really went behind the preparation when it comes to moving jobs?
I think it started. Yeah, sure. So I moved between product jobs during pandemic, and the reason or how I approached this product management transition is I considered this transition itself as a product management opportunity. So first I evaluated on why I want to make this transition, so also this pandemic, I evaluated if the current product management job was the right fit for me. Do I resonate with the product? And that was one key reason for me to move. And the second major thing that anyone who's in a product management job should understand is the product is throughout. There are different funnels, different focus areas. Do you want to just specialize on one particular area, or do you just want to expand your scope and move on? And the third thing is, I wanted to be a part of a product that I use frequently. So I was previously with a sports and sports betting company, and I rarely watch a couple of sports every month. And the product did not resonate with me, though the product management opportunity was good. So I started looking for roles, products that I resonate with. And as many of our previous speakers mentioned, why do I want to be with a company? So does the mission align with whatever I am looking for? So these are a few questions that I asked myself before I evaluated if I have to look for another product management job. And just to follow up on your question on what preparation went into it, I think when I started figuring out which company or which type of product I wanted to move into, especially within product management careers, all these questions served as a base for my preparation, because I worked at fintech, startups, and now in a FANG. So all of these companies had very different product management skills requirements. The interview processes were so different, and the level of product management position that you get into the company also determines what your focus area is going to be. So for an entry-level product manager, it's going to be more focused on the execution piece, whereas someone who is a principal product manager, it's more about setting the vision for the internal product that you're working on. So all of this analysis will play a key role in your interview preparation and also your successful cracking of your product management interview, I would say. How was yours?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what you said, just really evaluating my reasons for moving. Like, is it just the pandemic that's like, let's change, or do I really want to change? And then figuring out, like, really putting the design thinking or product thinking to my job hunt. So, you've spoken about that beautifully. I guess one of the things in terms of the job market I did realize was before I noticed that I would have to almost over justify that I have the necessary experience. And like if the job description said 5 years and I had to have 7 to even fit the bill. Yes. And now I'm getting people, reaching out to me for product director level opportunities. I'm like, hold the gun, I'm not ready. I think that's like the benefit of it. And it just goes to show, just to piggyback of that, is like there's really no formula for when you're ready. I feel like that was one of the biggest takeaways for me in terms of like the job market being hot. Like when the opportunities are there, we should go ahead and seize it. There's a lot of it that we learn on the job. There's a lot of it that we'll always feel underconfident about. That doesn't go to say that we should just jump on any opportunity that comes our way. We should still apply all those design thinking, principles that she spoke about to your career hunt as well. But like for me, the biggest takeaway was how much this job market and like the COVID transition of roles and stuff has kind of instilled confidence in me about like, oh, I actually can do this, So, and in terms of the job prep, I think a lot of people are here seasoned product managers. I didn't do anything very out of the blue, like some resources like Product School, Products by Women Communities, and Exponent, and all of these different resources online are really good. And depending on what role you're interviewing for, you just kind of practice more. Another takeaway I would say, mock interviews, life savior. You would, no matter how much you read something in theory, it's very different to sit someone from across the table or like Zoom now and just like really put and articulate it better, because when you think something, when you write something, it's different. When you're put on the spot, it's different. So those are two big takeaways from me, is just like seize the opportunity and like practice interviews in terms of job transitions, right?
And just one more thing that I would like to add on is this COVID also gave us the opportunity to maybe take a step back and understand where the world is evolving to. So this COVID led to a fast growth of many new technologies like cryptocurrencies, like Coinbase had a really great growth trajectory, especially in the past couple of years. And NFTs, metaverse, so all of these buzzwords are really getting started to pick up. And if you want to be a part of that transition, I think now is the time. So all those other factors also get into the picture when you decide to move now.
Yeah. Just kind of delving a little bit more deeper into this job search question is like, was there any introspective time where you actually sat down and were like, okay, this is like match, reach, and safety sort of organizations? I know you spoke a little bit about, this is a product that I resonate with, I understand it, I use it, but, was there like any segmentation saying that, hey, wellness is an industry that I want to be in, or the stage of the organization, or even like the pay package or the title, what are the different drivers that really went behind it? And yeah, just wanted to kind of get some thinking.
Yeah, I'll try and take a first stab. So I feel like kind of what she said, right? Thinking about why, and like really thinking about it as a product manager. And I felt like, I think in tech industry, everything is moving so fast. So I'm going to throw in a cheesy line and say, every time you feel like you're not being challenged and you're not learning, that's a really good time for you to assess things, right? Now, whether that's within your organization or outside of it, that's another factor to consider. So that was like step one in my game, where I was like, I'm not really excited by this. I'm not really learning anymore, right? And then in terms of what I went for, I think depends on what stage of the career you're in. I feel like when you're an early or mid-career PM, in my opinion, I think you should explore more, diversify a little bit. I think it goes back to like horizontal versus vertical exploration. Are you going to become a subject matter expert? And I think the more you move up the ladder, the more senior you are, people appreciate you being a subject matter expert and having like, an authority on the topic, whereas when you're younger into the career, people value having diverse thoughts and opinions. So for me, for example, I worked as a technical product manager, and I was really working on platform and software-based challenges and how do I scale and observability and all of that fun stuff. And I have a computer science background, and it all made sense. But then I was like, oh, actually, there's a lot more design thinking and like more business and user problems that I want to solve in my next challenge. So the way I targeted the roles was like, no, let me focus on something else. And then obviously the factors of pay, I don't think anybody is going to say no to more money, right? So just like figuring out what my baseline is, how inflation is affecting my standard of living. Work-life balance and culture, I would say, has become more of a priority for me personally than it was like a few years ago. Yeah. I think when I was a student and just starting out, I was like, I'll take any job you give me, and now it's more like, no. 6 p.m. I'm signing off, that kind of thing. So whatever the non-negotiables are for you in whatever stage of life you're in, I think that is really important to focus on, because early on, again, I would go with the brand names or just really think about the optics of it all. And now I'm just kind of like taking a completely different approach of like weighing in all these different factors which are non-negotiable for me, right? Mm-hmm. So TLDR, just create a list of your non-negotiables and kind of evaluate all these different opportunities based on those metrics. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I agree with all your points, and just a couple of things that I would like to add on is not just during this transition, I think even in my previous workplaces as well, like every 6 months, I would just do a sort of self-evaluation, seeing this is where I aspire to be and this is where I am currently. Do the opportunities in the coming months, do the projects, initiatives help me be where I aspire to be? So that is some reality check that I do every 6 months once, or whatever frequency that works for you. And then if the path is going on well as expected and you're getting the necessary growth opportunities in your current workplace, then I guess it's fine. If not, I think it's the right time for you to think about what your next opportunity is going to be. How do you prepare for that move and so on? And I think I probably mentioned this point to both of you outside as well. Having a sponsor within your company is really important for your career growth. Irrespective of what gender you are in, if you are an immigrant or no, I think having a sponsor really helps set your career trajectory, because not just your current projects, if you are someone interested in latest technologies, or if you are someone who want to just move completely to business side rather than focusing on technology, all of that will just be facilitated only if you have a sponsor. Maybe she or he is your manager or someone within your company who will facilitate that growth within the company and help you grow. And just one more point is the work culture. I 100% agree with what Soumya said. Yeah. And in addition to just the work-life balance, it is also more about the culture. Does the company give you the opportunity to share your voice on the table? Is your voice heard? Is your vision getting converted into product ideas? So all those matter as well. So all these must be your reality checks every once in a while to make sure you're going the right direction.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to ask you one question, Amisha. You haven't necessarily stuck to a lane, which is something that really inspires me. You are doing product, and then you also have your entrepreneurial and community building things, right? Like, what is your view on just like reassessing priorities, kind of what Srinidhi was talking about? Like, at your 9 to 5, there's one framework of like what is priority versus in general in life, what kind of frameworks or design thinking, if I may, you use to just see like what makes the best sense for you?
Yeah, this is a lovely question, because I've always looked at, like, I personally really like exploring the creative side. Like, just to give you guys some context, I built and scaled a community to over 20,000 women across the world. And I also recently launched a wellness company called Full Ritual. And we were setting out to deliver a fulfillment to Ipsy. If some of you know, it's a beauty subscription box. For me, I look at all of these areas of my life very separately. I have this creative side of me, and I think it's extremely important for everybody to look at work in different areas, mainly because I think it's not necessary that one area, or which is perhaps like just your 9 to 5, you're going to exceed and excel and be the star every single day. And it's important to kind of go out there, try new things. And I think everybody's been speaking about having different exploring different streams of revenues as well, right? Like, so it's important to think about that, especially during COVID. We've seen so many people go through layoffs. So start thinking about those things. And most importantly, I think it really has expanded my individuality, and I know I'm capable of more. Earlier when I was just probably doing a 9 to 5, I was like, okay, your mid-year review comes, or your end of year mid-year review comes, and your manager comes and tells you, here are your improvement opportunities. This is what you're not good at, or this is what you're good at. But it's not always true, because you only know what you're good at if you explore those other options and opportunities. Right. So for me, I think it's extremely important to have like a fluid career, or exploring different things and opportunities is extremely important, and you can be successful at different things. Like, especially growing up culturally, we've been taught that do one thing and do it really well. And I don't know if this is a cultural thing coming from like India, but for me it was. But no, you can do different things and you can be really good at it. So
yeah, no, I love that, and I think I'm really glad that we have representation of all perspectives here. One who's talking more about the fluidity in your career and exploring different avenues, because even I feel like that even makes you better at your day job, and whatever, if that's what you call it. And then there's someone who's working at a fan company and is like fully dedicated to that channel, right? And then someone's like me who's like everywhere, So I feel like that is such a good point, that when you're assessing your career priorities, apart from like just applying design thinking to your existing role, or maybe the next role you take, just apply it to your life in general and see like all these things that you're trained to believe, that you're supposed to have this good one single job to be successful. That's also a good way to think about it.
I just wanted to add on one more thing. When I'm thinking about my life or my day at large, I actually apply like different frameworks as a PM into my life, like whether it's Moscow, whether what's urgent. Like, I think about my 9 to 5 as something which is a non-negotiable 9 to 5. And then I'm also a mom, so I need to complete my duties. That is a non-negotiable to my family. And then, everything else, which is like, what am I passionate about? Like, I cannot let that part of me go away, especially as a woman. Like, you wear multiple hats. You need to make sure there's food on the table. You need to make sure you're putting your kid to sleep. You're doing all of that. So I don't want those aspects of my life to really like go away anywhere. So make that prioritization, ruthless prioritization. Say no to things, and that's totally okay. But I usually say yes to most things.
That's a different thing from a product manager.
That's a secret. No, I mean, you really define your own success metric in a way, right? So I guess pivoting a little bit from just transition and deciding whether we want to move and how we kind of think about our careers, switching gears a little bit to when you've, let's say, move to a new org, or at your existing org, we're facing, I think a lot of organizations currently are facing challenges of attrition and just people moving out, coming in, and stuff like that, right? And I think there was a really good point in one of the earlier sessions that the Shopify PM kind of brought about setting context, as PMs or as any role, when you're working with cross-functional stakeholders, how do you set the appropriate context? How do you provide them the necessary history and information they need to be able to make good decisions at work, right? So kind of getting into that a little bit, I'm curious to see what you guys' experience has been on your respective organizations. I know Srinidhi, Amazon is known for like a really hefty documentation and PRD culture. So I would just love to hear your thoughts on more about how we can set that context better, or how we can make the transition easier and smoother for ourselves if we are moving, and for team members if they are coming in, and applies both ways. And I'd love to hear both of your thoughts.
So that's a really good point that you have brought about Amazon's writing culture, because writing culture was not something that was a part of my previous companies, and especially with all the tech companies moving towards an agile environment, having a written documentation or spending a lot of time on documenting something that you are doing is not widely encouraged. So that is one striking difference that I found when I moved to Amazon. And when talking about the writing culture, it definitely has its own cons, because it takes up a lot of time. You just have to put your thought through it, but it definitely has a list of pros that definitely outweigh the cons. Something that I would resonate with the previous speakers is one thing is the highest paid member's opinion. It definitely moves away from that concept, because when you put everything together in a document, you think through multiple perspectives, not just it avoids all your unconscious bias or your own opinions and assumptions you have about the product and your customers. All of that gets eliminated when you write everything in a document, because it's not just your point of view you're covering. You just have to cover from different perspectives, like how does this particular idea or a proposal contribute to the company's vision? How does it impact the target customers? And instead of just stopping from the customer's perspective, it also extends to other use cases, like how does finance get impacted because of this? How does marketing communicate these promotions or acquisition channels to those users, and how does it impact our brand value? So there are a lot of things that go into putting this document together. So I would say this is a definitely good initiative or a culture that Amazon is bringing. And in addition to writing, it also fosters the reading culture, because when you get into a room where something like a slide or a presentation is going on, your focus is just on the slide, and when the slide is going through, you just have a lot of questions at the back of your mind. So what are the other areas that this might cover? Maybe it is coming up in the next slide, so your mind just wanders around in the back thinking about all other possibilities that that slide has not covered and so on. So you put your focus on writing and documenting all those missed out pointers, whereas in the document, which is elaborate, it covers all the frequently asked questions, any reasons on why a particular decision is made. Everything is thoroughly documented. So if you just put sufficient time into it, into both writing and reading, it definitely helps you become a product leader, I would say, because it just extends your vision, extends your ability to consider multiple perspectives and avoids any unconscious biases that you might face. So that is something that I really like about this culture.
I absolutely love that, and I want to hear your point of view as well. But as someone who's working in consulting, and I consult with different organizations across the board, I keep going in and out of projects, and every 6 months I'm going in and I have no idea what's really happening in projects. And I think while it's really important for building out these robust documentation, but sometimes what happens is that you have like 20 pages of documents and no one lands up. You spend hours creating these documents, no one's really reading it. People are still asking those questions in those meetings. So my question is, like, how can we kind of create that culture where we are synthesizing this information into a one-pager or a two-pager? Or does it also mean that we eventually really need to kind of boil it down to the simple basics of like having those one-on-one conversations, like what is too much or too less here?
That's a really good point. And I'd say this, that if organizationally, and this is something I've seen across different organizations, one where there's a really heavy product like doc culture, right?
Yep.
People write it, people read it. Then there's a newbie who comes in and has never seen a document, never reads anything, and it's like, can we get into a meeting? And you're like, there we go. And then on the flip side, there are organizations where there's literally zero documentation, and you're coming from a documentation culture, and like, can you please share some resources? Well, there aren't any. I'm the resource, So I've gotten all these different types of scenarios, and I think the biggest takeaway for me has been always treat someone like they're layman. Don't make assumptions when you're talking to someone, when you're presenting something. Even when you're in a meeting with the same set of people that you were in with yesterday, just be like, okay, I'm just going to set the room here, and I'm just going to share 1 or 2 lines about what it is that we're talking about. Make sure we're well aligned and answer any prerequisites or questions that you guys might have before I dive into this. I think that has helped me a lot. I don't have a good answer on which culture is better or how we can encourage one over the other. I certainly believe that, having written, like humans, they come and go. You should have some artifacts and maybe try to simplify the format and make it more user-friendly instead of very verbose. So really understanding what kind of culture is the person coming from the org, that is a decision leadership can make. But I think for me as an individual, I'm always, I'm not afraid of asking questions. When I get into meetings and people assume you've read this 5-pager document, maybe you're new, maybe you never got that document. So I don't hesitate from saying, please give me just like 2 lines of what it is that we're talking about. Assume I'm your dad or aunt or something and try and explain it to me. And you would be surprised how many times somebody has just texted me or like slacked me like, thank you so much for doing that, by the way. I had no idea what this meeting was about, So I feel like for me, the biggest takeaway in terms of setting context is like, ask for the context and not be afraid of it, because it doesn't make you stupid. It makes you efficient at your job. And then also do the same when you're presenting, when you're talking. Just be like, I know you know this, but I'm still going to talk about it in, like in half a second. And so just kind of doing that, I think that is my biggest takeaway in this situation. But yeah, it's a tricky balance for sure.
No, I think this is amazing, and kind of segueing from that part, which is asking difficult questions as as immigrant women leaders in product. What are some ways in which you actually work with your teams and influence them without authority?
Oh, that's
any examples?
Product lead without authority. That should be a T-shirt. I would say, I think from just an immigrant perspective, I would say I bring in a lot of empathy. I think that for me has been like really helpful, because I have been in situations where maybe I was at a disadvantage, a place, and I didn't really come with a lot of influence or authority in the beginning, and just like building connections and trying to understand where is this person coming from, because I know I needed it, right? Like people make a lot of assumptions about me having access to resources or me having access to sponsors or mentors in my career, and I don't have that. And so for me, I kind of now have become very empathetic when I deal with my engineers, with my designers, with people in my team. I'm like, they don't know everything that I know as a product or strategy person. They don't have enough context about why leaders are making this decision. So for me to be able to work in harmony with them and really feel like they're part of the same team, it's important for me to empathize with them, see what they want to do, and just kind of like, so what I do is I call it a venting session. I set it up with my engineers and designers. I'm like, let's just vent, let's talk about the problems. And so for me, I think from an immigrant or minority perspective, just being empathetic towards the fact that everybody has their own set of challenges and everybody deserves like a level up, a push. Even if they're not asking for it, you should offer it, because I wish someone did the same for me. So I think that is one perspective that helps me at least.
So I joined both of my recent product management opportunities in COVID, and something that has helped me was understanding what communication that each of my team members prefer. So some don't like jumping on calls, especially video calls. Some are just fine with any Slack messages. And I talk a lot here, but I would call myself an introvert, because when I'm in a crowd, I don't go initiate conversations by myself. If there are people around me, I'm really happy to talk and elaborate about things that I'm working on, but reaching out to people and communicating on my own is not really my strong suit. And pandemic has really helped me communicate with a lot of people, because reaching out on LinkedIn or finding out people in the communities either through a Slack message or jumping in just on a LinkedIn video call or something was really easy for me to get along with people, understand where my likes, dislikes are, where I resonate the more, and so on. So that is something that I personally learned moving into a new country, finding out new jobs, building connections here. So I carry the same learning into my job as well. So I initially set up a one-on-one call with most of the people in my team, try to understand how do we build rapport with each other, what the other one's expectations are, how frequently do you want to meet. Just be open to understanding what the other person's interests and disinterests are, and then you should be open to adjusting your expectations with them accordingly, because that's what you expect from everyone else, right? So that is something that has helped me in my current job, I would say. How was pandemic helping you learn, or what are the challenges that you faced?
I think a lot of it is similar to what you just mentioned. I mean, like they call it like, pandemic is like, I see it as like the time for introverts, right? We've been thriving through the pandemic. Honestly, I think this is the maximum amount of people I've seen in 2.5 years, and honestly, I was super anxious for this event.
Same.
But yeah, I mean, we've all been thriving during this time, and I think one thing really that has helped me, I mean, especially with community building or with like working in product teams, is to build implicit trust with the teams that you're working with. No, and not just saying, hey, this is what needs to be done, giving them the context behind why it needs to be done, showing them where they fit in. Especially working with developers, I think it's extremely important to kind of tell them why are we changing the priority of what we're doing and how it needs to be done. Everybody needs to be a part of those conversations, and I think trust is not something that can be built overnight. It takes months, it can take a day, it can take however long it needs to be, it needs to take, and that's totally fine as long as the culture works. I do want to quickly check in on the time. We're at time. We have a couple of questions in here. Maybe we can just take the first one and then close it out.
Yeah, I mean, the first one says, how can you start developing a writing and reading practice if you're not in a company or in a role that encourages it? Anybody wants to take a first stab?
I can go first because this writing culture was new to me when I moved to Amazon. So the culture was already there. It was new for me. It took a lot of time for me to write it out because when you write, you should not repeat the same pointers that you keep on speaking. So each point has to be unique. So that is a separate culture that you have to inculcate in yourself. So at Amazon, since Amazon wants to develop that culture, they have their own sessions for all those newbies, especially in product management, in order to build that culture. And if you are someone with a writing background and moving on to a company that does not have, I think as a product manager, it's upon you to take the initiative. Just like any other product idea, this is a new thing that you're bringing to the company's culture. So start documenting everything. And if someone reaches out to you with a question, just pass this document, say refer this line. And if there are any questions, reach out, we'll just set up a call. So you take the initiative, start writing through the document, convey it in a language that suits all the stakeholders because there might be only a certain portion that is applicable to stakeholders from a finance background, right? So just point them to the right place that has the right context for the particular team and that has a correct language that they want to understand from. So I think these are the two things that you can start doing in order to make sure the culture, the writing culture matches your expectations.
And I'll just add to that. I think to your point, Srinathi, like taking initiative, biggest thing, just kind of muscle memory or training the muscle of like, hey, here's a link. I can answer, I can jump on a call, but here's a link. Yeah. The third thing that I found useful is just like product people love data and love proof of why something works and it doesn't, right? Yeah. So maybe like I've been one of those annoying people that has said, I told you so, where I've been in scenarios and I'm like, if we had a good documentation, we wouldn't be in this pickle right now. So I think taking note of these instances in a way is also like a good trick, like where you can prove that, okay, if we had a placeholder documentation or if we kind of inculcate that culture, we would actually benefit from it. So just kind of like take a note, shoot an email to your leader saying, by the way, this is an opportunity area where we can add documentation and save some time on onboarding or meetings and stuff like that. Just one tip. And I think we're almost done, but I think it's how do you find sponsors in a company? Any quick last takeaways you want to share? How do you deal with sponsorship if the company doesn't offer one?
I mean, I can jump in here. To be honest, like if the company doesn't offer one, seek out to your network. And I can definitely say amongst everyone here, Tommy is a really good friend and a mentor. I have like people who I reach out to and like always constantly seek feedback. And I think that's extremely helpful. Seek out to your peers, seek out to coworkers, anybody who resonates with you and who's willing to give you feedback. So make use of your network because that's your net worth.
Yeah, I think that's a really good takeaway for our panel too. And thank you so much again for engaging with us and listening to us and asking all these amazing questions.
Thank you.